The Force Away. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. And here is the news. Making news. There is a brand new Star Wars fan film online YouTube. It's called Star Wars: The Time That Darth Maul Tried to Kill Palpatine. Check it out. I think it's by Star Wars Stories Untold, possibly that's the name of the YouTube channel. But if you type in Star Wars: The Time That Darth Maul Tried to Kill Palpatine, you will find it. It's about a couple days old. I'll be giving you a review of that later in the show. To more news, Starfighter is getting really close to big reveals. In fact, it may have had some reveals already from a very reliable Star Wars YouTube source that has been away for a while, but is possibly making a comeback. I don't know. But yeah, so just hold on to, I'd say the date would be August 14, or here in Australia, it will be August 15. Due to the time zone differences. Check that one out, coming about then, August 14 or 15. It's around just over a month's time away. Anyway, that is the news. Let's now get on with the views. The views this time around it's usually my viewpoint or my stories about Star Wars that I'd like to be told, but it is to do with a viewpoint and an opinion. It is to do with what type of stories should be made for Star Wars films. There's always been this talk, there's a lot of stories in Star Wars, especially Legends and EU and stuff like that. But the one thing that Star Wars does not have is an actual fully fleshed out book of the episodic saga. It was never actually created besides possibilities. Even when George Lucas created the first film back in 1977, it was pretty much on the fly, but it was majority there. It was just split up into three. That's why we got a trilogy: Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. But it doesn't really have a fully fleshed out book system like, Harry Potter or the Lord of the Rings, where there's actual fully fleshed out stories as a proper story. All we can rely upon is EU Legends, whatever you want to call it, and that is what we have to rely upon. Should we be using them as official sources? No, I think personally I'm cherry picking from those, as they are just more sort of idea type stories with great sort of lengths of stories there, but it just would clash a lot with the order of canon in Star Wars. I mean, some of the canon in Star Wars has been sort of a little bit altered, but don't worry, it's pretty much there. I just think we shouldn't rely upon EU or Legends type stories as official stories, but cherry pick bits and pieces, maybe a whole story to see, it could work out. I think one of the stories you could use as a whole story is the uprise of Palpatine. The uprise of Plagueis in the book Plagueis. That was a great fleshed out story that you could use as a movie, but it would have to timed perfectly. You would have to get really Star Wars fans back on board to really put that in the theater, because really Star Wars should be for the theater, to be honest. But anyway, so that is my viewpoint for this time around. Let's get into reviews. Reviews this time around is about the Star Wars fan film called The Time Darth Maul Tried to Kill Palpatine. Now, it's interesting. It's not really complex. It's a sort of a really big sort of training, testing sequence. Visually stunning. The voices, I think, a little bit compromising. But essentially the story really pushes Darth Maul to the limit in being tested by Palpatine to see if he will be broken after 7 days, I think it is, without food, without water, without sleep, to see how he would react. And he is a very powerful Sith that is a Darth. Both really work together. Look, straight off the bat, which is a little bit after the bat this time, I'm going to give this story a 7.5 out of 10. It is actually a really good little story in its look and its sound and its music and stuff like that. I just thought it was nothing that was very super interesting. It just seemed to be something that was, of not really, very intriguing. It was just okay. It was like it's a regular story, but it works out really well. Check it out. Definitely on your big screen at home, and check that one. Yeah, so that's called Star Wars: The Time that Darth Maul Tried to Kill Palpatine. It's on YouTube. 7.5 out of 10 for me. But let's now get into interviews. Interviews is usually my questions I get in my last particular video. So let me just open that up now. On the last particular video. Anyway, so the first question coming from one of our favorites. He loves being called favorite because I know him personally, but don't worry, you can send in questions at any time and you can become another favorite of mine or whatever it is. We are all going to be favorites on here. Anyway, let's get into it. So, will advanced generative tools eventually make official studio canon irrelevant if fans can instantly generate high quality custom alternative timelines at home? Well, that's interesting. Very, very interesting. I think AI is just, again, a maker and breaker is the best way to put it. It makes the film look good and creates great content, especially online and even probably in the movies. But I think personally it's going to be, it's going to break a lot of special seeing of, at the cinema, the Star Wars seeing at the cinema. Because everyone would have been used to a lot of stories outside. Here it won't make it so special. That's the downfall to it. And also you can have your likeness being used in other films that you have not agreed to, not been paid for. That's the other downfall. But anyway, that's my answer to the question. The next question from Michael from Werribee South again. If major studios continue to sign deals with companies like OpenAI, will the line between official studio productions and high-end AI fan content permanently blur? Yes. I think it's going to blur, and I think it is blurring right now. I think it's just a little bit too close for comfort, in my opinion. But anyway, so I think it will blur. That's the best way to answer that question. Anyway, so the next comment I got, which is an interesting comment from an iMavin Hoops, said dull. Now I'm thinking this person has referred to my last particular video because of my sound quality. I had to speak a little bit low. I was sitting right next to people. I had been in transition. That was the additions before this. I had to move to this new space here. But yes, look, it was a bit dull in its sound. But, this is the type of show. If you don't like Star Wars, I don't think you're going to get into this show. But also, it is a connecting sort of show to other movies from a Star Wars point of view. That's just a Star Wars kid like myself watching other films. In fact, I'll be doing one next week, and you'll sort of see a version of a Star Wars perspective from a film that could be just quite obscure, quite different to Star Wars. But anyway, I do apologize to I'm having hoops. Bit of a strange but fun name. And he said, dull, I do apologize. I'm going to attend to getting back on board like today with the sound being a bit more clear. Anyway, and that was due to being in a lounging area, in a public area. And I needed to keep my voice down. Anyway, so then the last comment, which is sort of connected to the last one, was from Michael from Werribee South again. He goes, stop whispering, lol. Well, now I'm speaking regular voice. Anyway, that is the interviews for this time around. Subscribe to the channel, The Force Always. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week with the Star Wars news, views, reviews, and interviews. And until next time, my friends, keep rocking.